Well, we are right in the midst of the first ever off season for the Canadian Premier League. And as you would expect with a growing league's first ever off season, there's a lot of interesting things going on, from expansion talks to the first ever sellings of players. One major thing about the Canadian Premier League, especially given that it's a growing league mostly filled with developing Canadian talent, is a lot of the players are signed to one-year deals, especially given in the first year it's a lot of unproven players. You don't want to sign a young 20-year-old who's never played competitive soccer before to a multi-year deal, not really knowing how they're going to play compared to the level of league. So in the first season we saw a lot of one-year contracts get signed. Because of that, a lot of player movement during this offseason has been free agent signings. But there have been a couple of big names getting physically sold because they were still under contract to their current CPL clubs. And of that, we have seen a couple of players moving up to greener pastures from the CPL. Now, there are 4 players that I really want to look at right now: Zachary Sukunda, Joel Waterman, Aimer Didic, and Tristan Borges. Zachary Sukunda was a pretty important part of the Halifax Wanderers last season, and he signed as a free agent with Ekenes IF in the Finnish 2nd Division. In doing so, he became the first ever CPL player to go from the CPL to Europe. Now, the Finnish 2nd Division to the CPL, to me, seems like a pretty lateral move, maybe just him getting his foot into the door in Europe, and also he's played in Scandinavia before. He played in the Swedish system in 2017, so going back to a region that he knows and a region that I think he's comfortable with, especially after, I guess, getting himself back on the map with his strong first season in the CPL. So while it's not to the most well-known of leagues, and it didn't get the Wanderers any money as he was a free agent, this transfer is just kind of a little preview of what was to come for the CPL going forward over the month following it. About 3 weeks after the Sukunda news, Joel Waterman was actually sold from the Calgary Cavalry to the Montreal Impact, making him the first ever Canadian Premier League player to be sold for a transfer fee. Now, Joel Waterman was a very solid CDM/center back for the Cavalry and a major part of their Canadian Championship run, and the Montreal Impact purchased him for $100,000. Now, not a huge transfer fee, obviously, but I think as setting the bar for how much transfer fees within the CPL can be, it's a pretty good bar setter. And to have a player who went up basically through the Canadian semi-pro amateur system, he played for the TSS Rovers, and he played for the Calgary Foothills, and he went up to the Calgary Cavalry before finally moving up to MLS and the Montreal Impact. It's huge, and it shows a very good standard of progression for what can happen now with young Canadian talent now that the Canadian Premier League exists. So Joel Waterman really took the most of the CPL becoming a thing, and after 1 year already is up in MLS, and it's fantastic for him. In addition to Waterman, Aimer Didic, FC Edmonton's star defender, who became the first ever CPL player to play a game for the Canadian men's national team and the first ever CPL player to score a goal for the Canadian men's national team during this January camp. It has come out that he is a part of the Vancouver Whitecaps preseason roster. No one's 100% certain if he's fully signed with the Vancouver Whitecaps, but he's there with them for the preseason. And again, this is a guy who's a free agent, so unfortunately FC Edmonton would not be able to get a transfer fee from Vancouver for this. But Vancouver Whitecaps has kind of found an identity of taking younger Canadians and trying to really build a team around Canadian nationals. I mean, the 3 Canadian MLS teams all seem to have their own methodology when it comes to signing Canadian internationals, and the most aggressive of those is the Vancouver Whitecaps. And it makes sense for them to go after Aimer Didic. They've gone after younger Canadian defenders before, Derek Cornelius. Didic is 25, so he is starting to reach his prime, the max of his potential, but also Vancouver is looking to fill a hole in their center backs after Daniil Henry left to go to Korea. So Aimer Didic probably will not be a starter for the Vancouver Whitecaps this coming season. I can see him getting some significant minutes off the bench. I feel like he is a very good defender, and again, another guy who was able to turn the CPL into getting a spot in MLS. And then, coming out this morning, the biggest news is reigning MVP, Best U21 player, and Golden Boot winner, Tristan Borges, was sold from the Hamilton Forge to OH Leuven in the second Belgian division. There had been rumors about Tristan Borges since the end of the spring season. He was a player who we all knew his goal was to go back to Europe. He spent a couple years in the youth academy for Heerenveen in the Dutch league, never cracked the first team there, but played quite a bit for the U21 team. And for him, I think we all knew that playing in the CPL was just an opportunity for him to showcase himself playing professional soccer, finally crack a professional lineup, and use that to basically get himself back to Europe in a place where he could play professionally. And he came to the CPL and he just completely tore it up. By far and away was the best player in that league. And for a player at just 20 years old to dominate his domestic league, he really was something special this season. And there were rumors that there were European teams who were asking about him in the summer, but the Forge wanted to hold on to them because obviously he was a crucial part of their CPL championship run. Without him, Forge doesn't win the CPL this season. And now that he proved himself, they were able to re-sign him, which was fantastic, so that when they eventually did sell him, which just happened, they could collect the transfer fee. Now, apparently the fee was just under $300,000, but it has potential to go up to as much as $500,000. And OH Leuven is a Belgian league team that currently plays in the Belgian second division. But what's interesting about OH Leuven is how the Belgian second division works is quite like the CPL. There is split seasons, so they have a first half season and a second half season. And OH Leuven won the league in the first half season, which means that they qualified for the promotion playoff, where they will play the winner of the second half season, and the winner of that game will get promoted to the Belgian top division. So Tristan Borges went to a team that, yes, right now they're in the Belgian second division, but they are one of the better teams in the Belgian second division and currently have a 50% chance of getting promoted to the Belgian first division next year, which means next season Tristan Borges could be playing in the same league that Jonathan David is currently playing in. Now, there was also whispers going around that Borges was being inquired by an MLS team and that he chose to go to Belgium over MLS. And a lot of people were wondering what the point of that decision was, because right now MLS is definitely a better league than the Belgian second division. But Borges is the type of player who he wanted to go to Europe. That was his goal, and you can tell he wants to be a starter or at least a major contributor wherever he goes. If Tristan Borges went to the MLS right now, he'd be a bench player, sometimes used as a substitute. He'd probably get Jacob Schaffelberg or Liam Fraser level minutes in MLS at best. So going to the Belgian second division, I'm not entirely sure what the level of play in the Belgian second division is, but I feel like he'll have ample opportunity to get minutes there, and I feel like he'll be able to be a contributor, which is what he wants to be, especially only being 21, and use it as an opportunity for him to continue elevating his career to higher and higher levels. And as a Canadian soccer fan, Tristan Borges has the potential to be an important player for the Canadian national team moving forward. He just has that offensive creative ability, especially in a attacking midfield position where Canada just doesn't really seem to have a young player ready to fill in that attacking midfield role. I don't think he'll be on the level of like a Mark Anthony Kaye, or definitely not on the level of a Jonathan David, but he can be an incredibly useful player for the Canadian national team. I see him as kind of Osorio 2.0. I feel like if the CPL existed when Jonathan Osorio was like 19-20, we definitely would have seen him playing there, and we probably would have torn it up, kind of like how Tristan Borges did. So Borges to me is hopefully going to succeed in Belgium and be able to elevate his career and keep moving forward. I don't think we'll see him in MLS ever really, because he said he wants to be in Europe, and I think Europe is the best fit for him. And really, it's a shame that we're not going to see him in the CPL anymore. He was so much fun to watch for the Forge. I previously said that last summer that the price of your Hamilton Forge ticket completely was dependent on whether or not Tristan Borges was playing. He was a thrill to watch, a great young talent to have in the league, and just the fact that he was able to go from not being able to get a professional contract to being the MVP of the CPL and turning that into playing in Europe now. It's a perfect showcase of what the CPL is all about. It's about giving these young Canadian players who didn't have chances to get into professional teams a chance to play professionally and springboard themselves to a higher level. And also, if Borges is gone, the Marco Bustos to the Hamilton Forge rumors suddenly make a lot more sense, as the Forge are now looking for a creative, central attacking midfield type player. But yeah, those are the moves that have been going on so far for players outgoing from the CPL. I think one thing that we're going to have to get used to with the CPL is whenever young Canadians show up and they start performing very well in the CPL, you can tell that they're not going to last very long in this league, because the CPL isn't really about holding players, it's about moving them up to brighter and better leagues. Not saying that the CPL doesn't have a chance for it to become a very good league of its own, but right now it's about giving these young players who wouldn't really have gotten a chance anywhere else a chance to get some minutes for professional teams and basically showcase themselves and see if they can move on up to MLS or better European leagues. And so far, after League One, it appears that it is doing its job perfectly. So, that does it for this video. Hit like if you liked it, hit subscribe if you want to see more of my stuff. Follow me on Twitter, link is down below in the description, and I will see you next time.